Taking over a new club in Football Manager can be very daunting. Sometimes it's hard to know where to start. Well, in today's video, I'll be trying to help with that by giving you the top 10 things to do when you start a new save in FM23. Welcome to the video everyone, I'm Jake for FMSCOUT and I'll be guiding you through everything that I would be doing here when starting a new save. 10 things that I think you all should be doing. I've started a brand new save with Juventus. I'm actually going to be doing this as a rebuild on my channel, so if you want to see the full rebuild, then my channel is linked in the description and that should be out in the next day or two. We also have some other content over there you might enjoy, but I'm going to run you through everything that I would do to get the rebuild started in the best way, to get the save set up for success in the future. If you do enjoy the video, smash the like button for us and comment down below anything you think I might have missed, subscribe for more, and let's get into part number 1. Now obviously when you start a new save, whether you know the team or it's a completely brand new team to you, you'll be greeted with all of this information which you can go through, but realistically you know all that, you know the things that are highlighted red you're going to have to action. You're getting spoon-fed the generic information here about your team, injuries, contracts and the league that you're in, and it's always worth reading this obviously, but once you've done that it's time to get started in your save. And the first thing that I always like to do is to take a look at our club vision. Usually I just click accept on here, I don't really negotiate the club vision, but if you go and take a look at what the club wants from you, that is always a good start. So part number 1, take a look at the situation you're in, and that's going to involve 2 things. Firstly, as mentioned, the club vision, where we're going to look for what they're after from us. So they want us to sign players under the age of 23 for the first team. That is something that we can look to do. Work within the wage budget, basically don't give contracts to older people, and you can also get an idea of what the club wants for you both in this season and in the future. So this year they want us to reach the knockout stages of the UCL and avoid relegation from the Serie A, which is of course because they have that 15-point deduction here at Juve, which is why I think it makes for an interesting rebuild, and basically they're only ever asking for us to continue to avoid from relegation, which seems like a glitch on FM's side. Feel like that should have been altered after the first season when the minus 15 points has disappeared. That's very strange that they want you to win the UCL but only avoid relegation in Serie A. Sports Interactive, if you're watching this, that might need fixing. But yes, the club vision I'm taking a note of so I get a general idea of what I need to do, but I'm also taking a look at the club's financial state, seeing how much money we've got in the balance, and also taking a look at our transfer budgets, but we'll delve more into them in a little bit of time. I'm more just looking for the overall balance of the club. Is it healthy? Are we in debt? Right now, Juventus, for a Champions League side, £7 million maybe isn't the most, but of course they are in financial difficulty, but at least I know where I stand. Next, I'll head to the transfer section, and this is where we are going to analyse those transfer budgets that we just mentioned to see how much we've got to spend. In this case, £15 million, and we've actually got a negative wage budget here. So I'll play around with the budgets a little bit until that's a little bit more usable. So now we have £10 million in the budget, but about 80 grand in the wage budget, which probably means we can bring in one first team player possibly, but I'm not done here. Alongside looking at the transfer budgets and the wages, something I always suggest to people, even experienced players sometimes seem to miss this and say, I never knew it existed in FM. Always do this. It's to head to the transfer clauses section, because often, not always, but often you can find some clauses here that you can sell for cash. Now anything with a pound sign or a currency sign next to it is one that you can actually action. In this case here, this is one that we can buy out, a clause that we can buy, which isn't necessarily something that we want to do, but sometimes you might see one on, say, Matthias de Ligt here, where we might be able to sell this Bayern Munich Bundesliga clause for £3 million possibly, or something like that. It doesn't always give you the option. Sometimes it takes a year or so, but sometimes you can basically take a cut price of what the transfer fee would be, but obviously the positive to that is that you can get it instantly. So we don't have any to sell here, but it's always worth taking a look. For example, there could have been one here for Demiral, where instead of getting 1.3 million when Atalanta qualified for the UCL, instead we can take, say, £1 million now, irrespective of whether they qualify for the Champions League or not. So sometimes it is a good idea to sell those clauses, get some cash in, and then if you can sell the clauses, they go straight into your transfer budget to give you more money to spend. Whilst we're checking out the finances, the club vision, it's only one click away. The third thing I'd suggest is to go and take a look at the development centre, because here is where you'll be able to find any young talents that you should be promoting in to your first team. I mean, you can look around every individual squad if you'd like, the under-20s, the under-18s, the B team, to get an idea of the players with potential, but all of the main ones, the ones that are actually ready to contribute to your first team, should appear here. In this case, we've got two guys, Caio Jorge and Matthias Sule, so we could decide if we want to bring them into the first team, or sell them, or loan them out, whatever it might be. Always a good idea to check the dev center for any talents, because now we're about to get on to analysing the squad. And that leads us on to part 4, because before we can really analyse a squad, we need to pick a tactic. Now, you don't need to find the exact perfect tactic that works with your team. You can do that a little bit later down the line once you get an idea of the players that you're bringing in, who you're selling, and the quality of player in your club. But you're going to need to make a tactic, because otherwise, if you don't and you go to the squad planner screen, you see here that you can't use the squad planner until you have a tactic. So just to start off with, pick a really basic tactic so that you can analyse your squad. So I would go with any of the ones that are being highlighted with the thumbs up here. Apparently a 4-2-4 is going to be the best tactic for us, so I'm going to click on that just to start off with. Obviously, adjust this in your own time when you learn the team, but it just helps now because when you want to, you can go to the squad planner and now you can see it's filled in and you can actually analyse your squad. So that is step 4, put a tactic in place. But before we get on to the position by position squad planner, for step 5, I would head over to your squad screen and get an idea of who the most talented players are at the club, who's on the highest wages, who's worth the most, and also who has the potential. So to start off with, we'll sort by ability. Who are our best players? We've got Milik here, who is on loan from Marseille. We've got Adrien Rabiot, Paul Pogba, Juan Cuadrado, Vlahovic, and Filip Kostic there. And then if we go by potential, it seems Ravella has a lot of potential, as does Fabio Moretti and Dusan Vlahovic. And then we'll also check out wages, so we can see those guys like Alexandro, Bonucci, older players but on very high wages. Maybe we should look to get rid of some of them. And we're also going to sort by transfer value to get an idea of who our most valuable players are. And once I've done that, there's one other thing that I would start to do, and that is to look for wanted signs on your players, because often in season 1 in particular, it's hard to actually get offers in for your players because a lot of teams have already done their transfer business. However, if there's a wanted sign on any of your guys, there's a good chance you could get some funds in for them. So I'm taking a note here of Rabiot, whose contract's expiring at the end of this year. He has some interest from Barcelona. He might be someone that we want to sell going forward, so I'll just keep him in my mind before we move on to the squad planner. You can also see Danilo here as well is wanted. He's wanted by one of Real Madrid or Barcelona. Again, not too long left on his deal, fairly old, maybe another person we could consider letting go. So now that we've analysed that, we can move on to step number 6. And that is, of course, going to be the squad planner. Now that we've analysed a general idea of our squad, who the expensive players are, who are our best players, we can start to build around this. Now, again, if you're not really set on the tactic that the game's provided, don't worry too much. We're just kind of taking a note of, let's say, right backs. How many right backs do we have? Do we really need 3 potential first team right backs? We've got Cuadrado, Danilo, and Esquilio. Maybe we could let Danilo go because he is one that has interest in him and we could use those funds. Left back, though, we seem to be quite light on players. Again, it's Danilo, Alexandro, and Esquilio, so that might be somewhere where we need to improve. So you can see already the cogs are turning in my head in terms of where we're lacking players, where we've got players in excess, too many players, and where we've got weak areas of our team. Centre-back, we've got Rugani, Bonucci, and Bremer. I mean, Bremer's good. Bonucci might be good for another year or so. Maybe we need to think about the long-term centre-back options at the club. Midfield seems to be a little more stacked. And you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. I'm going along, I'm taking a note of where there might be excess players that we're able to sell, where our biggest weaknesses are, and that's going to really influence how we get started with our transfers. But before we do any of that, let's move on to step 7, the staff at your club and what they do for you, and also the level of your staff. For me, that's as important as your transfers and your tactics and whatnot. So the first thing I'll do before we actually move on to responsibilities is just analyse your staff. You'll get given this graph here where it shows roughly how good your staff are compared to the rest of the league, and you can see ours is okay in most areas, but you'd think for a club like Juventus, we would have one of the best coaching teams in the division. It's kind of the case. We seem to be 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th in certain areas, but we'd like to be top of it all. But now that we've taken a note of that, let's move on to the staff responsibilities. responsibilities. And this is where your life, your save is going to be made 10 times easier, because what you can do is you can delegate any responsibilities that you don't want to manage. For me, training, I don't like being so hands-on with it. Some people might see that as a crime in FM not to do your own training, but play FM however you want, however detailed you want. And for me, I like to delegate training, so that's something that I do. Media responsibilities, you can delegate that. You can delegate your transfers and contracts. But one thing that I love to delegate is the staff situation. Now, you might think that you should be going out and handpicking your staff, and yes, that would definitely help your team. But what I've noticed in all of my saves, whether it be my Aberdeen save that I'm running, where you've got Celtic and Rangers in the division with you, or in any of the rebuilds I've done before, what I've noticed is that if you delegate staff recruitment, you can see here I'm setting all of this to the recommended staff member. What they're going to do is they're going to be in charge of the hiring and firing of your staff. You can also do the same thing for the contracts, so it decides who's going to be kept on at the club and who isn't. I promise you, if you let your staff do this for you, you will find within a season or so that you have one of the best staffs in the league. It even happened in my Aberdeen save, as mentioned. They never seem to fail me. They always seem to pick up good staff. They release the staff that aren't good enough for your team. And what you'll also see is as your club gets better, there might have been a staff member, let's say this goalkeeping coach here, who's half decent, right? You might see that he's being retained on a new deal in season 1, season 2, but then in season 3, as your club's got better, the AI that's handling the staff recruitment will notice, okay, maybe he's not up to scratch anymore. We'll let him go at the end of his deal and get someone else. So it's a constant process, and they'll keep making your staff better for you. I really love doing this because what it means is you don't get all of those players when you're offering them contracts that say, oh, you need to improve your coaching team. Most of the time, they'll sort it for you. They'll make sure your staff is at a good level. And I always suggest to delegate any responsibilities that you don't want to do. And staff recruitment seems to be one of the best ones that you can delegate. So we've got 2 more things to cover. The things that I suggest you should definitely do at the start of your save. If you are enjoying the video, smash the like button for us. But yes, we're heading over to the dynamics section next. And this is something that you should keep a real eye on throughout your whole save. But right from the off, I would get an idea of where players stand in the club hierarchy, because that's going to let you know who you can upset, basically. You can see Bonucci, Cuadrado and Danilo are our team leaders, all fairly old players. Danilo is someone that we might let go. Cuadrado's contract's running out at the end of the year. That's something we might have to think about. Adrian Rabiot, though, is only a highly influential player, which is still a big deal, but maybe if we tried to sell him, it wouldn't upset the whole of the squad, maybe a few players. Whereas if you tried to let go a team leader like Bonucci and he wasn't happy with it, the whole squad will know and you'll get massive uproar. Dynamics will go in the gutter and your team won't be playing very well. But Rabiot here, he might be someone that we can transfer away. We've seen his contract expiring and he has some interest in him. So that puts us on to step number 10. Once you've done all of that, obviously you can go make your mega tactic and your training schedule soon. But before you do any of that, I'd be focusing on getting rid of players and bringing players in. In particular, I always start off with letting players go because that really determines how much money you've got to spend and where you need to improve. So for me, I feel like we could let Rabiot go. We could maybe use a younger player in midfield. We won't need to sign a new deal with him, and we could invest in, say, the left back position or the right back position, wherever we feel is our team's weakness, because that's where I'd always focus your transfers in, especially at the start, is fixing any weaknesses instead of strengthening areas that you're already good at. Sounds self-explanatory, but often people forget about doing that. But there you go, we've let Rabiot go, or at least we're trying to offer him out, so we'll see if we get any bites, and right now it hasn't helped us. He's got a bit annoyed, no one's actually came in for him, but from here you can do what you want, you can transfer list him. But once you started to let players go, that's when you can get on to the parts that we all love in terms of scouting and signing players. That's another thing you can delegate, by the way, your scouting, so that they sort out all the scouting focuses and you just get brought back with the players to look at, which I find is actually quite a good way to do things. So yes, scouting will come next, transfers in, then once you've got your players in, you can make your mega tactic that makes use of all of your best players and hides your weaknesses, and obviously that stuff will come with time in your save once you know a little bit more. But in terms of what you do right from the start, if you follow those 10 steps, you will set yourself up for success. Like I say, I'm going to be doing this rebuild in full on my channel in the description if you want to check that out in the coming days, so subscribe to that if you want to see it. But yes, this Juventus rebuild would be underway now. We would have done our 10 starting steps and we can move on from there, and we've set ourselves up for hopefully a successful save. Let me know if you think I missed anything in the comments down below. Hopefully you did find this video useful. Even if you're a more experienced player, hopefully you still found a few things in here that you probably have been forgetting about. Don't forget to like the video if you have enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks. Thank you and goodbye.